Together, we will make America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. All right, YouTube. I am testing to see if I can get rid of the echo. So for the users on YouTube, tell me right now if you're getting an echo, if I'm getting reverb, because if I am, I'm just not going to talk on YouTube until I start the show. Please tell me. All right, and I got to make sure that the people over on Rumble and everywhere else can still hear the music. Okay, I'm getting hearts on YouTube, so I don't know if that means echo or if I'm successful in getting my audio to work. All right, well, either way, we've got a lot to talk about. No echo. Okay, thank God. And no music over on YouTube. Cripes. Okay. Well, sorry, YouTube. No audio from me. So here is what your financial advisor is probably not going to tell you. By the time the news says to buy gold, it's already too late. You're waiting. I get it. Everybody's waiting to see if the ceasefire holds, waiting to see if the strait reopens, waiting to see just kind of what happens next. But the thing about it is, gold is not waiting for you because gold moves on fear, on instability, on the unknown. And it moves a lot faster than you can react. So while you're waiting for certainty, the rest of the world is planning for what comes next. So you can wait or you can prepare, but you can't do both. And remember, the best time to put on a seatbelt is before the accident happens, not after. So if you're finally ready to act, then it's time to reach out to Noble Gold Investments. They help Americans just like you protect their savings with physical gold and silver. It can get shipped right to your door, or they can hold it in a tax-advantaged IRA. No taxes, no penalties, no rollover fees on 401ks or an existing IRA. So visit noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78 and get your free investor kit today. 5 minutes today could protect decades of savings. Once again, noblegoldinvestments.com/redpill78. Don't be the one still waiting. And when you support my sponsors, you support this channel. All right, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much. And thank you also for indulging me in a little bit of trial and error. So part of my problem is that I am streaming directly to YouTube from my OBS so that I can send the 4K stream there because I can't send 4K anywhere else. Which means that audio is being delivered differently to YouTube than it's being delivered to Rumble and literally everything else. So I guess I just need to accept the fact that the people on YouTube are not going to be able to hear me doing the introduction so they can hear the music. It'll be fine. They'll basically miss 2 minutes of me blabbing about what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to say that anyways over the course of the next 2 or 2.5 hours. So thank you very much, everybody, wherever you're at. Really do appreciate it. And we do have a lot to discuss. We're going to be talking about fraud. We're going to be talking about Biolabs. We're going to be talking about a bunch more fraud. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. First of all, though, I want to open up with a conversation about California. Now, do you guys remember Eric Swalwell's billionaire friend, major Dem donor and bundler. Stephen Klubeck, he was the guy that Eric Swalwell was just kind of living with because he didn't really have a house in California. He was renting that room from a family who clearly didn't actually have him living there with them. That was totally fraudulent, just so that he could have his name on a lease at an address in California, neglecting the fact that he hadn't been there for the 5 years that was necessary. That's neither here nor there. The reason we're talking about Stephen Klubeck today is because he was just arrested in Los Angeles. Now, okay, so Yafune Kanizi says Rumble can handle 4K. It's been like that for about a month. So, unfortunately, it can't handle 4K using Rumble Studio because I'm using Rumble Studio. Everything is in 4K, and it's 4K like on my virtual camera. Everything goes into Rumble Studio as 1080, and I know that because I go and download the streams afterwards, and it's always a 1080 stream. I don't know. Maybe people on Rumble are actually seeing it in 4K. I don't know. I don't watch my own show while it's live, so I'll reach out to the people at Rumble, and we'll see what's up. Okay. Billionaire casino and timeshare mogul Stephen Klubeck, the man who said he was leaving the Democrat Party because Eric Swalwell lied to him about the type of man that he was. He one time called Swalwell his little brother. He poured over $1 million into his short-lived and failed campaign for California governor. He was just arrested in Los Angeles yesterday. These are felony charges for attempting to prevent or dissuade a witness from testifying. Now, we don't know exactly who it was that he was attempting to dissuade from testifying, and based upon his reaction to Eric Swalwell's many women who came forward and said that he drugged and or sexually assaulted them or just sent them creepy messages on Snapchat or Facebook or Twitter DMs, wherever it was, I would have to imagine this might be a case dealing with something else. Now, you may also remember that Klubeck was engaged to an Israeli OnlyFans model who also was running her own scam operation. She would, much the same as Eric Swalwell, drug men that she was going on dates with, and then she would steal from them when they were incapacitated. So it's quite possible that Stephen Klubeck maybe was attempting to put a little bit of pressure on a man who was going to be testifying against his soon-to-be bride. So Klubeck, of course, has also famously demanded every single penny back from Eric Swalwell. Now, I suppose, considering the reaction to Eric Swalwell, maybe it's possible that they are considering Eric Swalwell to be a witness to something. I don't know. Maybe Eric Swalwell is trying to make a deal so he doesn't end up in prison for the next 40 years. I think that's probably the least likely scenario. But as it stands right now, Klubeck was able to post bond. I believe he had a $300,000 bond, and for a billionaire, that's no big deal. Of course, you only need 10% of that actual bond amount. And we don't have any specific details about the case other than what I've already told you. So certainly the warrant will be released in the near future. I'm certain that Klubeck is going to be arraigned publicly. We'll get details then, but based upon the nature of the charge, just from the reading of the plain text, with what he's been charged with, he does face up to 4 years in prison if he's found guilty. Now, Klubeck did have a spokesperson for him and his organization speak to the California Post. That's the California version of the New York Post. And he did say these charges are false and we look forward to our day in court. Now, Klubeck is rich enough. He can probably drag this out for a very, very long time. So it may be quite a while before we have an ultimate dispensation to this case. But, you know, I like seeing this stuff kind of boomerang back around on people. So believe you me, we are going to be following it. Now, Spencer Pratt also continues to rise in infamy in Los Angeles among local Democrats, and certainly the women that he is hoping to beat in the jungle primary that will be happening very, very soon. Spencer Pratt is now the favorite to win in that primary. Nithya Raman, who had previously been the favorite to win, dropped precipitously after that debate where Spencer Pratt wiped the floor with Karen Bass and Nithya both. And now Karen Bass is continuing to drop more and more and more. So a lot of people are paying attention to Spencer Pratt. A lot of people have pulled their support from Karen Bass, but at the same time, a lot of the typical Democrat fundraising mechanisms have also gotten behind Karen Bass because they can see that world, Los Angeles, what it would look like outside of the hands of Democrat control. Now, really, at the end of the day, Spencer isn't doing anything special. He's just kind of speaking from the hip. He's a guy who's got a grievance. He, his family, his entire neighborhood, they all had their houses burned down. And so his campaign has really been based around that. Now, when you just go on social media, it's pretty clear that the majority of people that you're seeing comment and interact and pushing the engagement on this subject, they do support Spencer Pratt. Of course, social media is not the real world, and you're going to have people from all over the entire world who come forward and say, yay, go Spencer, I'm going to vote for Spencer, when in reality, you know, those people are likely not going to be showing up at the ballot boxes. And we still have to worry about who is controlling those ballot boxes, who is controlling the actual count of those votes when it comes to Election Day. If Karen Bass and her people are in control of that stuff, then I see a world where Spencer might have this election stolen from him. But if this is a real, legitimate election, then I think there is a very high chance that Spencer Pratt could be the next mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Now, I wanted to show you this video right here. This was just posted to Karen Bass's TikTok. And in this video, she is with the local leader of the Democrat Party in the city of Los Angeles. And of course, the local Democrat Party is now endorsing Karen Bass for mayor. I don't know why they waited so long, maybe to see whether or not she or Nithya Raman were going to become the odds-on favorite. But what's really important to take note of here is that when you look at the comments on Karen Bass's own video, it becomes quite clear that there really is no organic support for her online. Take a look.
I'm here today with Mark Ramos, who is the leader of the LA County Democratic Party.
Look, we are so proud to endorse Karen Bass for re-election for mayor of the.
Now take a look. Every single comment on this video is some disambiguation of Spencer Pratt for mayor, Spencer 2026, vote Pratt, vote Spencer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes on and on and on. This is definitely a ratio. There are far more comments than there are likes or shares on this video. You've got a couple dozen likes and a couple dozen shares, but you've got hundreds upon hundreds of comments, and each of those comments in support of Spencer has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of likes themselves.
City of Los Angeles, proud to be here at East Side Italian Deli. A union shop, been around since 1929. Stop here before you go to the Dodger game, which is right at Dodger Stadium, right around the corner. Almost 100 years, an institution on Los Angeles. Proud to support Karen Bass for re-election. Let's get this done, Los Angeles.
I'm here today.
All right. Now, the video itself, although it's roughly 30 seconds long, this clip is 1 minute and 40 seconds long, and that's how long it took the person who screenshotted it to go through all of the comments and show. And I've went and watched this a couple of times. I literally cannot find a single comment of a single Angelino who is supporting Karen Bass. Now, I wanted to show you another one of Charles Curran's brilliant Karen Bass AI campaign ads, and he titles it, "Who Said Karen Bass Has No Accomplishments to Run On? Vote Spencer Pratt." All right, take a listen.
I'm Karen Bass, and I'm running on my accomplishments.
Los Angeles on fire, mayor nowhere to be found.
We were so prepared for wildfires. I didn't even have to be in the country when the town burned. I've addressed the homeless problem. Now, most of them won't stab you as long as you don't make eye contact. Our climate change policy is so strong, we've brought down energy use in the Palisades by 99%. Almost none of the needles in children's playgrounds have AIDS on them. If you like the last 4 years, you're going to love the next 4. Vote Bass. I'm Karen.
That's so good. This guy, Charles Curran, makes the best AI videos. And I'm sure he's got a lot more going on than just making videos about Spencer and about Karen Bass, but he does a hell of a job. Now, take a look at this. Karen Bass is none too happy about the fact that these AI campaign ads are being made about her. And she's now complaining to CNN about how she's being demonized. But it's really not what's happening. People are just making fun of the accomplishments of Karen Bass. Just none of them are any good.
But what's worrying me now is that his social media is now taking on a violent turn. And that worries me, because when you do that and when your messages are so hateful, or when you demonize people, then you do provoke people who are unstable, and you can jeopardize people's safety.
You mean like the throwing of the tomatoes?
Well, the throwing of the tomatoes, which look like blood, or drowning me and the governor in a reservoir. But there's also other violent scenes. And so I've noticed that it's taking on a violent trend. But
no, that's not taking on a violent trend. It's taking on a satirical trend. Now, in response to that, Charles made yet another AI video in response to Karen. Here she is. Oh, she is a clown. What a clown move to go on CNN and complain about people making fun of you. Now, I just have one more AI video for you. Karen Bass decided to get in on the action and make her own AI campaign video. Take a look at this, attacking Spencer. Dangerous MAGA Republican Spencer Pratt.
What does dangerous Spencer Pratt have in mind for Los Angeles?
I make a living giving drug needles to unhoused individuals, and Spencer wants to put me out of the job. Spencer wants to force me to get treatment and turn my life around instead of dying on the streets. What kind of bully forces people to do things?
As a busy mom, running away from the crazy drug addicts in our park is the only exercise I get. Spencer wants to get rid of them. Does he want me to be fat?
A vote for Spencer is a vote for change. Why would you vote for change when everything is fine? Stay the course with Karen Bass. Smile, damn it!
Don't take the bait. Stay the course with Bass. What does dangerous...
Of course, Karen Bass didn't make that ad, but it was made in the spirit as if Karen Bass had made it. So good, man, so good. Yeah, this was definitely an ad that was made by Spencer. I just wanted to troll you guys. All right, now. There's a bunch of races that are going on in California right now. One of those, of course, is the governor's race as well. Xavier Becerra, who previously served as the Health and Human Services Secretary under Joseph Robinette Biden, who is also now the Attorney General for the state of California. He is running for the governor's spot, and he just did an interview where he apparently was completely caught off guard. Now, this is what's really special. In a place like California, where things are just so bad, for a candidate that previously would have been guaranteed a softball interview to essentially be asked a series of relatively good questions, it's almost unheard of. Now, I'm not going to glaze the mainstream media too much here, but this was wonderful and highly, highly embarrassing for Xavier Becerra. I mean, he quite literally starts the interview and wants to make sure that it's going to be a softball, and then kind of defines the terms of what the interview should be, and then is asked a series of questions, which are really good and definitely ones that he should ask. But you know he's unable to, because any of these positions these people have held have been unchallenged and been objectively bad. So now that they're starting to be challenged, they've got nothing to say.
By the way, this is a profile piece. This is not a gotcha piece, right?
Well, look, I think these questions are fair. It's in order to learn about you as a candidate.
So long as it's about the profile.
I don't know how you define profile, but I'd like to begin the interview.
The way I describe profile is you talk about all the things that I've done, things I want to do, and along with some tough questions. But not only tough questions.
Yeah, that's not how journalism's done. You agree to do an interview, Xavier Becerra, and especially when you've got a record like yourself, you really ought to expect that some of these questions are not going to be the ones that you want to answer. But you are running for governor. You're currently the Attorney General. You were the Secretary of Health and Human Services. And you know what happened while Xavier Becerra was the Secretary of Health and Human Services? Tens of thousands of children went missing.
During your time as HHS Secretary, a New York Times investigation found the health department couldn't find some 85,000 children it had released.
That's not accurate. What you just read is not accurate. First, that's what I'll say, because it was never the case that we could not find kids. You're essentially, I don't know if you got those talking points from Donald Trump.
It's from a New York Times article.
That's not what the New York Times article said. The New York Times said that individuals, the children and their sponsors, did not respond to calls. They didn't say we couldn't find kids.
Working overnight in slaughterhouses, replacing roofs, operating machineries in factories, children as young as 14 years old.
That part occurred after these children had left the care of the Department of Health and Human Services.
Do you let these children go into those individual sponsors in their responsibility?
Some of these kids, probably because they needed to earn some money, started working in places that were very exploitive.
Okay, and that's not a problem either way. Xavier Becerra trying to fact check the New York Times. The New York Times! When the New York Times comes out and exposes you for having tens of thousands of children that you directly and intentionally delivered into the hands of predators, you better have an answer. But his answer, of course, is no, that's not real. No, that didn't actually happen. It didn't go down that way. Listen to this, too. Just revealed by the City Journal, California's prison system just got a massive gift from Governor Gavin Newsom. $189 million contract to provide each and every member of their massive prison system with an iPad. Now, when you give a bunch of guys serving years in prison access to the internet, is anybody here going to have trouble kind of immediately figuring out what they're going to do with those iPads? We're talking about not only lifers, but we're obviously talking about people who are sexual offenders, talking about people in there for rape. We're talking about people in there for child sexual abuse material. Ooh, yeah, so it's not a big leap to understand that as soon as these guys got their free iPads, they immediately began using them to get porn, to make porn, to go on cam girl chats, to groom children. This was a pilot program that began back in 2018, and it was finalized in 2023. They called it Digital Equity for so-called justice-impacted individuals. Now, theoretically, the reasoning behind giving these inmates these iPads was so that they could learn, they could call their families, they could maybe read the news, watch a little crap news network. But of course, it was actually exactly what I told you. They would use these iPads to get porn, to abuse kids, to engage in activity that prisoners probably should not be having access to. And certainly, $189 million from taxpayer funds should not be used to give these guys access to the internet so that they've got something to beat off to every single day. Now, you don't have to say necessarily that 100% of the inmates are doing this, but probably a lot of them, probably most of them. What they found here at the City Journal was that when they contacted dozens of death row inmates, they were told that the prisoners in the state system are definitely using their devices to watch pornography, have sexually explicit conversations. Some of them definitely are using their tablets to groom minors. Now, the state claims they regulate explicit content, but the inmates said, oh yeah, we can get around that very, very easily. Now, of course, these guys are criminals. They're going to figure out how to get the things that they're not supposed to get. Oh, my goodness. Anyways, just another major dump of money that necessarily should have never happened. All right, you guys. Before we continue, I do have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble and my friends specifically over at MCG Tech. Now, I want you guys to take note of that QR code on screen because I've got something for you. Actually, make that too. These aren't just a couple of add-ons or nice-to-haves. These are the kinds of gear that you don't even think about until the moment that you really wish you had it. First of all, you're going to get a tourniquet. Not the kind that you see sitting on a shelf collecting dust. This is the same style of tourniquet that's standard issue for Marines in the field. That's the kind of tool that's there for one reason, when things go sideways and there's no time to hesitate. And on top of that, they're going to throw in a Tanto trail knife at absolutely no cost. Built for hard use, no display cases. If you're ready to grab them, just scan that QR code on your screen, or you can go directly to mcgtac.com/red clamp, REDCLAMP. This is about being a little bit more prepared than you were yesterday, a little more capable when it counts. And this is the deal. It's for my audience only. It's going to be something you're not going to want to sit on. Grab this clamp and your free knife while they're still available. And if you've got people that you care about, you might just want to go ahead and grab a couple of extras for them as well. Offers like this are not going to hang around for long. And if you want it, don't wait until they're gone. So use that QR code on screen or the link that you are going to see below the video. Thank you so much to MCG Tech, and thank you to Rumble. Okay, now we are going to talk about the fraud situation. But first, I need to say thank you so much to my brother from another mother, Principled Enigma. He says, God bless you and Lisa. Looking forward to the great broadcast as usual. I am curious, however, have you ever worked with Gary Franchi from the Next News Network? I have never worked with Gary Franchi from the Next News Network. One time somebody gave me Gary Franchi's number and I reached out to him and I never heard from him. But yeah, other than that, I don't know Gary. We've never had the opportunity to speak, really. AOB22 says, you only make fun of those you love the most, and Bass is loved by so many. Intolerant leftists over on Pill dropped a cookie and says, according to people online who claim to be active Hebrew speakers, the word for scam, lie, is harta, not hanta. Yeah, again, I spoke to somebody else who had actually looked this up and specifically looked for a translation of lie or fraud, and it wasn't hanta. And when I went and looked for a translation of that word, something to verify that hanta meant lie or fraud, I found nothing to suggest that. So, also Moonbaby0437 says, hey there, Family. Hey there, Family. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. All right, speaking of California, California is one of these places. They have found tremendous amounts of fraud inside the healthcare system. Now, tomorrow, J.D. Vance is going to Maine. Today, J.D. Vance and Dr. Oz did a press conference from the White House while President Trump and a bunch of other people are in China meeting with Xi Jinping. And they wanted to announce a couple of changes that are taking place inside the Medicare and Medicaid system. First of all, $1.3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements that would previously have been scheduled to be returned to the state of California will not be going to California. Let's take a listen to JD and his rationale.
We're announcing that the federal government is deferring $1.3 billion in Medicaid reimbursements from the state of California. And the simple reason is because the state of California has not taken fraud very seriously, and because of that, we see a lot of the consequences that I just referenced. And again, let me highlight the fact that this really is two separate victims. So there are California taxpayers and American taxpayers who are being defrauded because California isn't taking its program seriously. But also you have people who've been prescribed medications that they don't even need. Sometimes they've had drugs put into their bodies that they don't need because fraudsters have actually encouraged false prescriptions and false administration of medications. So think about this. You're just a person trying to go see a doctor. You assume that your doctor is doing the right thing, but these fraudulent healthcare providers are getting rich by giving people medications they don't even need. It's a defrauding of the American taxpayer, but it's a violation of the trust that should exist between every American and the people who prescribe the medications. That's one thing that we're targeting, and this is why we're taking this action, is because we want California to get serious about this fraud.
All right, so $1.3 billion not going to be going to California. They have also fully begun the process of holding every single state accountable. Now, you may not know that right now, all 50 states, they already have their own anti-fraud units within the programs. And the problem that we have is that these anti-fraud units have simply not done their job. In the state of Hawaii, in the last 5 years, since they began this fraud detection process, they've definitely found fraud in Hawaii in the same place, in the same way that they have found fraud in many other areas. But the state of Hawaii has had 0 prosecutions for fraud. They've had 0 investigations. And so today, letters went out to every single state Medicaid program, and they essentially line out the demands that they have to ensure that this stuff begins to start happening the way that it should. Basically, the money is what these states care about, and the money is what the federal government's gone after, withholding payments, essentially denying payments, also shutting down these many different companies that are acting fraudulently. And in this instance right here, also withholding the money that would otherwise be going to fund those anti-fraud units. And if they don't start doing their job, well, then they're just not going to receive anything. And they haven't given a timeline on this, but it's pretty quick. The federal government could just flip a switch and then the money stops flowing.
Today, we are sending across 50 Medicaid programs, we are sending letters that will require them to show that they are effectively and aggressively prosecuting Medicaid fraud in their states. And if they do not aggressively prosecute Medicaid fraud, we are going to turn off the money that goes to these anti-fraud units. And I would say a couple things about this. You may think, obviously, this is a Republican administration. We're all proud Republicans up here. You may think that this is purely a red state or blue state issue. That's actually not true. We see Medicaid fraud issues in Ohio, the state that I used to represent in the United States Senate. We also see Medicaid issues, fraud issues in a state like Maryland, which is obviously a very blue state. But both Ohio and Maryland have worked with us to take this issue seriously. They've worked with the guys behind me. They've worked with our entire team to make sure that they take fraud seriously. Again, this does not have to be a red state or a blue state issue. This is just basic good government. However, states like California, states like Hawaii, states like New York have completely not taken the fraud issue seriously in the Medicaid program. And so for those states that refuse to get serious about fraud, we are going to turn off that anti-fraud money. And if we continue to find problems, we can turn off other resources within their state Medicaid programs as well. Our goal here is not to do that. We don't want to turn off any money. What we want to do is ensure that people are taking fraud seriously. We want to protect Medicaid. We want to protect Medicare. But we can't do that if the states that are administering those programs are allowing those programs to be fleeced by fraudsters. So we encourage, whether it's California or New York or Maryland or Ohio, we encourage people to work with us. We want to help you use technology and other tools to get rid of the fraud, to get to the root of the fraud. We want to help you. But we can only help these state programs if those state programs are willing to help themselves. So these letters are the first step, the first effort to try to force these states to get serious about prosecuting fraud, and that's exactly what we're doing.
All right, the money is what these people want. Let me see. Okay, Principal Enigma says, with a connection to the internet, really intelligent prisoners could cause havoc on the outside. This is a bad idea. They already did that in California. During the COVID-19 pandemic, you had prisoners, lifers, that were collecting unemployment money from the state of California, and it was just being directly deposited into their prison wallet. I don't know what their commissary account, I think they call it. Siesta Randy says, not easy to comment and send Bitcoin, but get a Rumble wallet. Great work, Zach, Lisa, and mods. Randy, I do have a Rumble wallet, and when you go in there, I mean, you've donated on a Rumble wallet before, so I don't really understand what you're saying there. Emerald, but thank you anyways. Emerald Dragon says, why is everyone so worried about a Pokemon giving them a virus? I know it's a ghost poison type, but come on. And okay, so this is a Pokemon joke. I don't know enough about Pokemon to really understand this, but it looks like the name is the Haunter. Let me see. And then Siesta Randy says T5. T to the 5th power? I don't know what that means, Randy, but thank you. And then Emerald Dragon says, you have to say haunter with a Boston accent for the joke to work, by the way. Haunta. Okay. And then Principled Enigma says, I have a pretty extensive theological library as well as a Hebrew to English dictionary. I, too, was unable to validate the claims about Hanta. And then Mokanon says, the prison wallet is something totally... Oh, yeah, you're right. Prison wallet's up the pooper. Okay. Yeah, so it is the prison commissary. Okay. What is my freaking... My internet doesn't seem to be working. My browser seems to be giving me some issues. Maybe I have too many... Maybe I have too many tabs open. That could likely be because I've got like 100 tabs on 5 different screens. All right. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to bring that up. For whatever reason, it's not working. All right. Now, Dr. Oz also announced that the U.S. government is placing a nationwide moratorium on new hospice and home health care licenses. That means that from this day forward, there will be no new home health care or hospice licenses issued. No more opportunity for these individuals to commit these acts of fraud. Let's hear that.
Next is a nationwide moratorium on all new hospice and home health care. Why is that possible? Because when we squeeze the balloon in California and slow their growth of hospice and now take away 800, the payments to 800 hospices, we know what those fraudsters do. They move to nearby Nevada. Next door, Nevada has a 7-fold increase in hospice already. Arizona, Texas, they're moving across the country. So we've today announcing a moratorium nationally. There will be no new hospices or home health care open in this country. If you have the program now, you can keep it. You can go to ones that already exist. We're not taking away any services, but there will be no new ones, licenses granted until we can figure out a better way of working across government. Let me highlight this, because when Andrew, who's leading, and the Vice President are chairing this task force, it's very simple. You have CMS, you have OIG, March Bell sitting over there. You have the Department of Justice. You have the FBI. You have Treasury. You put those things together, you make a powerful fist. And that's the fist we're going to punch through bureaucracies and realities that are stopping our ability to protect the American people. Next is...
All right. So, in addition to that, I believe that previously they had mentioned that they were shutting down hundreds of these home health care businesses in Los Angeles County alone. Initially... when they first started discovering it, there was nearly 500 they had shut down. Now they have shut down over 800. And Dr. Oz also mentioned during the course of this press conference that out of those 800 that they've shut down, only 20 have reached out to say that they were shut down improperly, that they actually have people that they are servicing. And of course, the ones who have reached out are now being actively audited. So before they get turned back on and before they begin getting reimbursements again, they do have to prove that they're real businesses. But it goes to show you, I mean, less than 20 out of 800. I mean, we're talking about 2% or something like that. Somebody tell JS Casey that it is just him, because it's definitely me and I'm definitely on the air right now. Okay. Now, we're going to jump over to Maine because we have another situation with one of these homes, not a home health care business, but this is a sober home. So a sober home is where you go to live after you get out of rehab. It's like transitional housing. And at this particular sober home, they have no water and they have no electricity, which is obviously not the way things are supposed to be run. Private individuals own these homes. They are licensed by the state, and they provide a safe environment for people to go live so that they can get their lives together, get a job. Oftentimes, you know, when people get out of prison or out of jail or something like that, they may have to go live in a sober home so they don't go back to the same people, places, and things that were helping them to use previously. So you've got rules that govern your conduct when you're living in a sober home. And those sober homes are licensed upon the idea that they're going to be providing not only a sober place to live, but also a home with the amenities that you would expect to get if you were living someplace else. Namely, not only a roof over your head, but water and electricity. So these people are not able to, they're not able to cook. They're not able to keep anything in the fridge. They're not able to take a shower. It's pretty awful. And of course, the good folks at the main wire went and visited to see if they could figure out what the hell's going on.
My name is John. I'm a reporter with the main wire. Hey, how are you?
Oh, wouldn't you know it? You've got an African working there as soon as you walk in.
So I'm hearing that you guys have no electricity and no water here?
Yes, sir.
Why? What's going on?
I don't really know what's going on, sir.
No hot water, no electricity?
No, since Friday.
But this is a sober house, right?
Yes, sir.
How long have you lived there?
Since November 23rd.
Oh, wow.
Last year, yeah.
So how are you guys taking showers and cooking food and stuff like that with no? But see, I see the lights on here. So
yeah, it's if I can show you.
Sure, please.
Okay, we have this floor up and
upstairs,
and we have basement, and there is.
So effectively, whoever it is that owns this home is being paid by the state for every single person who lives there. They're only providing the place for them to live. The people who live there, they are required to get a job. They're required to provide for themselves at the base level. But they have to have a safe place to be. Otherwise, they're just going to go back out on the street, and they're going to end up staying someplace where they will probably end up committing a crime, getting drugs and alcohol again, and then ending up maybe back in the system. But the person who owns this home, the person who is licensed to operate the sober home, is obviously getting this money and then not using it for the care and upkeep of this facility. This is actually pretty nice in comparison to the home that we looked at yesterday, which is for people with developmental disabilities. That place was trashed, completely disgusting. If I had a relative that was developmentally disabled and needed to live in a care home, and I went and got them, and that was the condition they were living in, I would be absolutely livid. You know, this is the same area where several months ago I showed you a story about some African men who were working at one of these care homes for developmentally disabled adults, and this guy took a 55-year-old man who needed constant care and attention and left him in his car with a seatbelt on, and then went home and got drunk for hours, and the guy basically cooked to death in the vehicle. Totally disgusting, absolutely horrible. His family was obviously beside themselves. That guy ended up going to prison, so thank God on that. All right, now, getting back to Ohio here, we do have a couple of more parts from the new Daily Wire series on the fraud that they're discovering there in Ohio. Now, Ohio has actually responded to the reporting, and their contention is that Safeguard exists, but there actually is a loophole, and we're aware of it. So their safeguards, they claim, have been put in place to cut down on the fraud, stop the abuse that's taking place in Medicaid home health fraud. Again, Columbus is the seat of the county where the majority of the fraud is actually centered. That's also the center of the Somali population in Ohio. But the problem is that one of the biggest tools that the state of Ohio has to even verify care is actually taking place is completely useless. It simply does not work. So what you have there in Ohio and in many other states, but Ohio specifically for the purposes of this article, is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year fraudulent Medicaid industry. And now that people are beginning to look, we're seeing services that are reimbursed, which are obviously not truly happening. But people are bilking the system for simple things like cooking, cleaning, companionship, and then they're not even providing those things. And the people that are ostensibly supposed to be receiving those services are not even the ones who really need them. Now, I also had a viewer whose father is an elderly vet, and he does need help, and she is the one who provides that. And so she goes like six hours a week to help her dad out. And it's not like a ton of money, but certainly it helps out, and it offsets the expenses that she has in being able to provide those services. And it's great that she's able to do it rather than having some random Somalian come in and God knows what would happen to her father. But the key component to this system of checks and balances that they have in Ohio is mandatory electronic visit verification, which is capturing the date, the time, and the service location. This is actually required by federal law. But Mike DeWine's administration has inserted this loophole, which includes making the verification optional. So the federal law says you have to do this. And then the Ohio law says, well, actually, no, you only need to think about seriously doing it. So the 21st Century Cares Act, this is the act that essentially neutered this check on whether or not the care is taking place. It was passed in 2016, and it mandated that all states require electronic visit verifications, and they had to have it in place by January of 2020. And that was not even for everything, but just for the riskiest categories of personal services, the things that they thought, well, somebody is likely to abuse. Non-medical services, things like cooking and cleaning. By the time January of 2023 rolled around, they put it in place as well for nursing, which makes total sense. But for these years, Ohio was just basically paying providers even if they didn't submit any sort of electronic verification. Now, this electronic verification, my viewer who reached out about her father, she said, that she does this. She wants to make sure that it's obvious that she is providing these services. It's crazy to me that they just write checks, hand out this money to everybody, and they don't do this with every single instance. Now, the state auditor who discovered the other day that 44% of personal service claims were most likely fraudulent, it's because they have no electronic verification. And the system is essentially the same when you look at home nursing. Basically $1.1 billion in claims that are not supported by any sort of evidence. They've also determined that if the state has an electronic validation system, then using it should, of course, be a condition of payment. There is a spokesperson for the Ohio Medicaid Department, Stephanie O'Grady, and she said, well, actually, we did do that in March of 2025, but right before they made the EVV mandatory, the state government neutered it as a fraud prevention tool. It used to use, well, it was supposed to use GPS coordinates that would be captured from an electronic device. So you would be in that location with your phone, checking in with the electronic verification app. And then, of course, they would be able to see exactly where you were. So you say, hey, I'm checking in at this home to provide this service. Your phone verifies that's where you are. But instead of making sure that that happened, the app itself was made optional, and they defaulted to having the GPS coordinates captured off. So you have to go in yourself and turn it on. And of course, if you are a Somali fraudster, the chances of you telling on yourself are very, very low. So effective July 1st of 2024, GPS functionality inside that EVV application or device may only be activated with the signed consent of the individual receiving services. The signed consent. So that means you actually got to put pen to paper. That is more of a sign off than you have on any other app on your phone. Probably right now, on every single person watching the show, your phone has got 10, 15, 20 different apps that are cataloging your GPS location right now. And you agreed to that when you installed the app. It is crazy to me that they have not done this for something as simple as this. Now, the approach, they say, allows the person receiving care to make an informed decision related to privacy protections for individuals receiving home and community-based services. Now, she also said that this process on the app, the GPS coordinate capture, is turned off for nearly half of home visits, and reliable coordinates are present in roughly 53% of electronic records. So the patient is also supposed to sign their name to show that the patient and the aide were together physically at the time that they checked in, but they actually took that out too in 2024. Earlier this year, the Attorney General of Ohio, Dave Yost, whose office is right now looking at policing Medicaid fraud, addressing it in the same way that J.D. Vance's team is doing, he testified the rollback of safeguards has obviously made his job pretty difficult. And I think that's an understatement. Without something to show that these visits and these services are happening and taking place and being delivered, They're simply just lighting money on fire and throwing it out the window. And if I had to guess as to why that's happening, it's because they know that these people are likely going to be voters at some point if they're not already. Money from these individuals is also flowing directly back into political action committees, campaign accounts, and of course, a whole hell of a lot of it is sent directly over to Somalia through these Somali money changers. Now, Daily Wire also was able to track down one of the worst offenders, the people, a man who is stealing essentially millions of dollars from Medicaid in the state of Ohio. And it makes complete sense that if a governmental organization says that there is a ton of money available for something, that immediately there are going to be criminals who determine the best way to bilk that system. And in Ohio, from these systems, from 2018 to 2024, the taxpayers have shelled out over $2.5 billion for these sort of basic home health related services. And as soon as they agreed to start pumping out this money, the number of businesses that were offering these services exploded. This personal care category, which didn't exist before, boom, it just got huge. And now that's a lot of money that actually ends up coming sort of into the community. You've got these people who are bilking the system. They end up buying cars. They go to the grocery store. Wait, you people? No, I am definitely here. Wait a second. Are you guys saying that I am not working? It just cuts out? Testing. I am definitely here. I have been broadcasting this entire time, and I can see it on Rumble that it's here. I cannot believe that Rumble is not working. There is nothing that I can do to make Rumble work. I can't shut Rumble off and then turn it back on, because that would mean that I just ended the show. Wow. We aren't working, you're fine. Okay, you okay. All right. So I don't know what the hell the problem is. Looks like plenty of people are having no problem seeing it. All right, so the state's largest outpatient Medicaid category should be something that we are verifying. Now, if we take a look at an address in Columbus, 1415 East Dublin Granville Road. We've got one of these buildings called True Home Healthcare LLC. True Home Healthcare LLC was one of the businesses that said that they were out for a break. That sign appears to have been on the door for quite some time, and it doesn't look like anybody actually has been to that office. In Medicaid records, the owner is an African-sounding gentleman by the name of Mamusu Kanu, and according to public records, Kanu is a big-time criminal. He's got a slew of convictions, and they include a variety of garden-level crimes like theft, assault. He's also got a couple of DUIs in there. He's also got several civil judgments and tax liens. And he was also charged with felony aggravated assault in Virginia, also convicted of theft in Columbus in 2004, 2005, and 2006. Now, True Home Healthcare LLC received $100,000 in December of 2023. He had only 15 patients, so it sounds like he was billing for the maximum. He actually did a phone interview, and apparently he goes by the name of Sue. He's a boy named Sue. Maybe, I guess it's a woman. She said that she had a criminal record, but said, even if I do, it doesn't have anything to do with nobody. They, Medicaid, certify you before you do anything. And she is also connected to another person named Eliu Contact. Eliu Contact is the husband of Sue, and looks like they've been partners in business and in crime for many, many years. They got together over 2 decades ago, and on December 12th of 2004, both of them were charged with the same theft in Columbus, Ohio. They've also lived in Alexandria, Virginia. They stiffed a couple of landlords there, refused to pay their rent. They were foreclosed on in Columbus. And in Franklin County, this is where Columbus is and where all of this fraud is located, her husband has faced 25 charges. He's also got additional convictions elsewhere, which includes the endangerment of children. So given all of these things, I have to ask, why in the hell does the federal government, or the state government in this instance, why do they license people who have these types of criminal records? And I don't think that anybody that is a career criminal should be able to be involved in a business like this. There's plenty of other things that they can do. I don't think that it's safe. I think that there should be some pretty heavy safeguards on people who are going to be doing this sort of thing. Anyways, these people are career fraudsters, so it is completely understandable that once they got into this home health care, personal care business, they should immediately start defrauding the government as well. Now, we also have another fraudster that was tracked down. This is Omega Healthcare Services. Their building is also basically completely abandoned. In the location where they're at, it is one of the largest African immigrant populations in the entire nation, and they also receive the bulk of the state's Medicaid dollars. Omega was certified to begin receiving Medicaid dollars for home health care services back in November of 2020, right around pandemic time, and the state has paid that firm $5.7 million as of June 2020 and the most recent publicly available billings. Now, business records show that Omega is registered to Esther Achiampong, who a decade ago had a daycare business in Wisconsin. That daycare was Kids Campus CDC, and that was shut down because they were unable to provide investigators with the requested attendance record. So it sounds like they were defrauding Wisconsin for the kids showing up. It was the exact same grift that we see in Columbus, in Maine, in Minnesota. Now, they also share an office with an accounting firm that's called Scabeda, and they are also registered to Esther and her husband, Robert. Back in 2005, Robert pled guilty to felony theft of public money in federal court. He stole $19,000 from the IRS and a priest in a scheme that is pretty closely aligned with what fraudulent home health care companies are known to do. He claimed at the time that he represented a community development nonprofit hoping to seek a federal grant for tax consulting for the elderly. He falsely claimed that 25 volunteers filed taxes for 1,000 elderly people, and then he billed the government for $16,000 in expenses. Now, as a result of that fraudulent action, he lost his accounting license. He got 4 months house arrest. He got 3 years of probation, and then his probation was extended to 2010 because he had another felony conviction, this time for failing to support his own children. So the feds had to put a $15,000 lien against him. He never paid it. And his wife, who is an immigrant from Ghana, found an extraordinarily successful business venture in billing the government for visits to the elderly. In December of 2024, the government just said, you know what, we've had enough. We're no longer going to try to collect the money we say he owes us, even though the government is also paying his other business with government money. It seems like they could have very easily gotten that money out of the money they were paying out. They basically said the collection period for the criminal monetary penalties had expired, so they didn't care anymore. Now, just before that, records show that the Achiampongs bought an upscale home in a very nice suburb called Lewis Center. And then in April of 2025, he had his accounting license reinstated by the state of Ohio. How Christian of them, how charitable. Now, Scabeda's sign advertises advice on advanced taxation, and they boast of securing $25 million in loans. He himself received about $25,000 in forgivable COVID-19 loans. And Robert's multiple felonies are just one of a slew of red flags the Ohio Department of Medicaid probably should have seen when they approved Omega Healthcare Services to operate in this healthcare field. Because, again, it is known to be rampant with fraud. If you have a fraud conviction, you're stealing public funds, why in the hell are you being approved to work in this area? Their paperwork was filed back in May of 2020, but it didn't have Robert's name. It only had his wife and a white American teenager who lived more than 2 hours away. Sounds like they perhaps paid for that person's identity to be put on their corporate paperwork. Now, the public records show that teen is the son of a man by the name of Paul Kapsasis, and that person had just gotten out of federal prison, also for tax fraud and money laundering convictions. That was due to an illegal casino he was running out of a bowling alley, and the paperwork for Omega was filed 3 days after that teen turned 18 years old. As soon as he was old enough, they used his identity. Now, the Ohio Department of Medicaid did not seem to find it odd that this teenager from Canton was teaming up with a woman from Ghana for a Medicaid business, but of course, that looks suspicious to anybody who might be looking into it. So again, these people are making incredible amounts of money with complicated and sophisticated fraudulent networks, whether it's due to their criminal history, their use of identity fraud or theft, and the obvious use of fake patients or Medicaid ID numbers that they are using simply to bilk the government out of this money. I sincerely hope that they start withholding money from the state of Ohio, because it looks like they need to do it real bad there. Wounds Are Us says healthcare of any kind requires a background check. There is someone inside the system facilitating this. So Wounds Are Us, for this particular type of home healthcare, these are for personal services. So the organization is licensed by the state, but they don't need to have any medical training. So we're not talking about nursing. We're not talking about doctors. We're not talking about wound care. This is for the sort of basic things that don't require that. That's why it's so rampant with fraud. So there may be people on the inside. I'm definitely not disputing that. But the reason this particular type of quote-unquote medical care is so rampant with fraud is because it doesn't require any licensure whatsoever. All right. Now, thank you also to Hogleg71 for the cookie. Thank you to Filterdog, who says Massey's chances. So, yes, Thomas Massey's chances of being reelected have dropped like a stone since that woman came out and gave her account of their relationship. Thomas Massey did address it on X, and it was kind of a non-denial denial. He definitely didn't say these things didn't happen, but he said, I didn't behave inappropriately. So it does sound like they definitely may have had a relationship. No Thanks Joe says, happy hump day, Lisa and Zach. Good midweek to both of you. As always, enjoying your stellar reporting. I do appreciate it. God bless. Stay safe. Thank you for that. I appreciate you as well. Okay, now... okay, that was it for over there. All right, now let's jump to another state, this time the state of New York. And this is a case of a former Democrat judge from Brooklyn. He was just arrested yesterday for defrauding real estate investors. His name is Edward Harold King. He used to be a Brooklyn Supreme Court justice. He, and along with two other defendants, were just charged in this wire fraud conspiracy. Now, the complaint is coming out of the Department of Justice, so this is a federal charge, and they said earlier today at the federal courthouse in Brooklyn, a complaint was unsealed against Sam Spry, also known as Yechiel Spry, Shimon Spry, and Eli Shapiro, and Edward Harold King. Both, all of the defendants were arrested this morning and are scheduled, well, no, hold on. You've got Sam Spry appears to go by all of those names. Yechiel, Shimon, and Eli. All right. And then Edward Harold King. So Edward and Sam were both arrested, and they're scheduled to make their initial court appearance today. I'm not sure if that's actually happening. They're appearing before a magistrate judge. As alleged, the defendants stole millions of dollars from investors by cynically leveraging King's position as a sitting judge to lend false legitimacy to supposed investment opportunities. U.S. Attorney Joseph Nocella is prosecuting this case. Today's arrests demonstrate that this office will hold accountable those who exploit victims for their own financial gain, holding corrupt individuals accountable for the abuse of public trust, and will always be a priority for our office. Fraud that hides behind a veneer of legitimacy, especially the authority of a judge, strikes at the heart of public trust. The IRS Criminal Investigations Unit also was active in this indictment. And IRS CI will relentlessly follow the money, expose deception, and ensure that those who manipulate and mislead investors are brought to justice. Today's arrests send a clear message. Schemes dressed up as an opportunity will not shield wrongdoers from accountability. You know, this reminds me of that case from last week where dozens of fraudsters working at law firms were indicted and arrested. And I hope that everybody is taking note of the fact that a lot of high-profile normal people are being indicted for things that we simply did not hear about for many, many years. You know, lawyers, former judges, current politicians, bankers, CEOs, heads of nonprofits. These are all sectors of people who may not have been high profile in name, might not have been celebrities, but they were certainly high profile in terms of their power and in the circles that they moved in. And they're all being indicted, arrested, and they're going to be put on trial. So this is a pretty big deal. Florida no rumble. What do you mean, Florida no rumble? All you can see is the chat. What the heck is going on? Hold on. Let me refresh my browser. See if that does anything. Wow. Okay. So can you guys see this bad camera angle now? Testing, testing. Can you see this fine now? Okay, some people can see it and some people can't. This has got to be, this is not something on my end. This is definitely something on the end of some people. All right, so I'm just going to have to continue. There have definitely been some strange internet attacks going on today, not just in relation to this, but some big platforms have been getting it. Yeah. Okay, so somebody said not fine on Brave browser. So, you know, sometimes your ad blocker may be causing issues too. So, all right, guys. You can't see me. You have my feed blocked here on Roku. You mean like you personally blocked my feed? Okay. All right. So the DOJ in their court filings said that Spry and King perpetrated numerous schemes to defraud, including multiple schemes to defraud real estate investors. What they would do would be to solicit the victims' funds in these fictitious investment opportunities. They would tell the victims that if they invested their funds, they would be returnable on demand if the victims decided to end their involvement in the investments. Anybody who's ever invested in real estate knows that that's obviously not the way things work. So then at a later date, when people would come back and say, I want my money back, they would say, well, we can't return your money because we simply can't get it out. They would come up with a series of excuses, and basically what they did was take these people's money. They would essentially convert them into their own personal use, and they would live their life and buy things. Now, in November of 2024, Spry presented two investors with an opportunity to purchase commercial real estate located in Freehold, New Jersey. Spry told the investors that to take advantage of this opportunity, first they would have to show proof of liquidity by depositing funds in escrow. And then Spry told the investors that King was an independent escrow agent and a New York judge. So then Spry made numerous misrepresentations designed to deceive the investors, stating the investors, if they decided not to pursue the investment, they could advise the escrow agent and then they could receive the full amount deposited back within 2 business days. Now, based upon this scheme that I just laid out, the investors wired $6.5 million to a bank account that was in King's name, pursuant to written escrow agreements signed by both the investors and King. In the days following that wire transfer, millions of dollars of those funds were then withdrawn and transferred to a bank account in Spry's name. When the investors went to King to request the return of their funds, King provided false excuses as to why he could not give them the $6.5 million. And then months later, King and Spry returned $1.5 million to the investors. And they said, this is only a portion of your investment, but it's all we can get back. All of the other investors completely defrauded. Nobody has received their money back. Jim Kyle says, I don't understand. Your feed has been perfect today. And that's the problem. For some people, it's not perfect. And there were just enough people saying it over and over again in the chat that I just felt it necessary to address it. All right. Now, we have heard on numerous occasions that under Joe Biden's regime, there was a structured service that was being offered to illegal aliens. And that essentially was basically free homes. People that were illegal were being given like the best FHA rates that you could possibly get. Their loans were having their closing costs were being covered. They wouldn't have to bring any money down, and they didn't even have to have good credit. So right here, AntSync is the guy who has, he's a foreclosure specialist. And so he's a loan officer and he's an inspector. And he's the guy that I've played for you before, going around and showing homes of people who were either deported or who self-deported and then just left all their stuff. And so he talks about the state of the real estate market in Texas. And he said, in this instance, basically, people, reasonably so, they want questions to be answered. We do have some specific details about what these programs were and exactly what was happening. And you think about the state of the housing market, guys. When Lisa and I bought this house down here in Florida, I put offers on no fewer than maybe 5 to 10 houses, and every single time I would be outbid. And, it immediately goes outside of your budget, and there's really nothing that you can do. The house would be available. I would send a realtor to go look at it for me. Before they even got there, the house would have been swept up, and it would have been, $20,000 over the listing price, something crazy like that. And so I was very lucky to be able to buy this house, and I only paid $5,000 more than what they had it listed for. That was enough for them to sign the contract, and I was like, thank God it wasn't more, because I would have been screwed. I wouldn't be living in Florida. So now things are very different. You've got all these people who are no longer in the country. They are defaulting on their mortgages, and the banks that offered these mortgages were giving them much better rates than they were giving to American citizens. Now, I'm going to be so pissed if the government does a freaking bailout like they did in 2008. But let's hear from AntSync on this.
Americans simply want to know why they were given privileges to other nationalities, people who came from other countries. In this particular case, the North Dallas area, the H-1B visa or whatever visa they had, they came over, they were given the ability to buy homes. These people didn't have credit. They came from India. India's credit system didn't transfer to America's, but they were able to buy with zero money down. They were able to take advantage of down payment assistance programs. They were given great rates simply because of their visa status and their last name. Banks prefer to do business with them than with Americans, making Americans jump through hoops to get the same kind of loans. And now the conversation's shifting because we see they're trying to aggressively sell. We see that tech layoffs are affecting them. We see that the whole pause on the visas is affecting them. And a lot of them are at a point where they would just simply like to go home. What happens, because we're already seeing prices come down in that market, what happens when they're upside down? They simply can just walk away. Time will tell. I will add that I spend a lot more time in Irving, Salinas, etc., in the nicer parts. I've been hanging out in the low income and middle class areas for a while. There's a lot of people behind in those areas, but now I can tell that I'm in the area, that it's the visa areas, and by choice, maybe they're refusing to pay, or maybe they've been laid off. I don't know. I don't have that information. All I know is they're starting to fall behind.
So what this is evidence of, first of all, not only what I've told you guys recently about all of these people essentially leaving the United States, not just people who were here illegally, but also visa holders who are unable to renew their H-1B visas because they have to have $100,000 or whatever it might be. But this is proof that the housing market crisis that we've been experiencing in the last several years was due in large part to all of these people being given extremely favorable terms. Of course, if somebody gets a zero interest mortgage with a $0 down payment and no closing costs, they're going to sign on whatever. And that means that an American family is going to be shut out of the housing market. Now, I realize Florida is a popular place to move, and I chose to move here at a time when a lot of people were moving here, hundreds of thousands of people. But the market was different at that time than it is normally. Right now, there's no bidding wars on houses, all right? Maybe in a couple of different areas, but you're looking at like people who are millionaires. Largely, right now, there are hundreds of thousands more homes than buyers here in the state of Florida. The prices have not gone down yet, so it's not really a great time to buy a house down here. But the problems that we've experienced in the last several years have been largely due to the influx of people not from our country who were given very favorable terms. So during the Biden administration, if you were an H-1B visa holder, they were giving people houses with 97% to 100% financing. And FHA, which is the federal program, they would give 97%, and then the rest of the money would come from state programs for first-time home buyers. You would have zero money down, thanks to programs that were initially created to help low-income American families get into their first home. FHA loans to non-permanent residents quickly grew to 6% of mortgage issuances. The percentages were undoubtedly higher in places like the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which I believe is where AntSync is located, because H-1B visa holders are disproportionately concentrated in that area. He says, I don't have anything against people in America on H-1Bs. I do. I think we have too many of them here. I think that H-1B has its place. But we have far too many people using the H-1B visa system who are not highly skilled, who are not working in these industries. We have massive amounts of fraud in these instances. I think that there should be no immigration. I appreciate people who want to come and move to the United States of America. But if they do, I think they should already be financially stable. I think they should already have money. I think they should already have a company. I think they should be forced to come here and start a company and hire Americans. I think that they should in no way should be lining up to move here to the United States to take over a municipal area and then put their own people in charge. You want to move to America, you become an American, you assimilate. You do not move to America and then have all of your friends from your country also move in, run for seats on the city council, and then take over the local government. Like that's just bullshit, because then you're going to turn it into Little Mogadishu or Little India or wherever it is that you're moving from. We want to keep America for Americans. And in my mind right now, that means stop allowing people to migrate here until we can get a handle on the problems that exist. And that may be several years. It might not be another decade before we figure out everything that was done during the last administration. But I think as long as it takes, it's worth doing. Now, he says, I don't have anything against H-1B visa holders. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I found many of them to be great people on an individual level, and I wish them nothing but the best. Individual immigrants, especially those who are here legally, are not at fault for a flawed U.S. immigration policy. And I echo that sentiment. Oftentimes, the people who are legal immigrants coming here, paying their way, assimilating, becoming an American, they are great people. And if they fled communism, they're oftentimes very based. We got a lot of Cubans down here. The Cubans are great. They understand what's at stake. But then you have people who are obviously coming here because they want to subvert the culture. They want to take over. They want to infiltrate. And those are the people that I don't want. But this might be the most radicalizing thing that I've ever seen. Not only are American workers forced to compete for jobs, they're also forced to compete in the housing market against people bringing 0 to 3% of a house's costs to the closing table versus the 10 to 20% that people have to pay. I had to pay 20% down when I got my mortgage. First, companies import mass numbers of H-1B visa holders, largely in back-office, white-collar fields like IT and accounting. This essentially imposes a lower ceiling on domestic wages in those categories. Oftentimes, those people also have fraudulent credentials. They don't really have the skills. They didn't go to the schools. They're doing their jobs remotely, and so they're paying some Pajit back in India or Pakistan $5 an hour to do their job for them and then turning in the work as if it's them. Then on top of it, they don't even have to save up the money for a down payment. They can just close on a $500,000 house with $0 to $15,000 plus that 97% FHA loan. Meanwhile, ordinary American families are forced to come up with $50,000 to $100,000 for that same down payment, and that shit just doesn't happen. Now, take a look at this chart right here. If we go back to President Trump's first term in office, roughly half of 1% of non-permanent residents and foreign-born individuals were receiving FHA loans. That peaked during the Biden years, okay? Actually, it peaked, it looks like right around the end of 2024. So it was steadily on the rise. And then as soon as President Trump was inaugurated, it immediately began dropping. And now here we are, and it's less than what it was during the Trump years. So we are so lucky that President Trump was successful in his reelection bid. Now, let us transition to the main event today. We're going to be talking about Dr. Anthony Fauci and, of course, our friend Tulsi Gabbard and her investigation. Now, I think that there is no coincidence that Tulsi Gabbard's investigation into the biolabs, not only in Ukraine but around the world, is being revealed at the same time that all of this renewed attention on Dr. Anthony Fauci is coming out. We've got this whistleblower. He came and testified earlier today. We've got the investigations of Fauci's top lieutenants. We've got the attempted smuggling of more dangerous viruses coming into the country, being investigated by the FBI. So much attention is being placed on Anthony Fauci, the criminal actions taking place around him, and now the investigation into what clearly was an illegal funding of biological weapons facilities around the world. And, of course, some of them in Ukraine. We've also got news about Ukraine. Now, I need to say thank you very much to Fergie318 as the VP of a legit home healthcare company. Due to the 2016 CARES Act that Obama signed, the only way that fraud can happen is if it is state-sponsored, as electronic visit verification is mandatory. Yes, and it is mandatory at the federal level, and then, of course, Ohio made it optional. So, yes, I agree with you. I think that there must have been some knowledge within the state government of Ohio that if they were to make this mandatory change optional, of course, people aren't going to follow it. It's like, you know, you pass a law, you tell people you must not murder anyone. But, of course, if you murder somebody, you know, that's on you. We're not going to prosecute you for it. We may prosecute you for it, but, you know, people might murder some people. Or, you know, I mean, seatbelts, you know, even if they're mandatory, people don't always wear them. Filing taxes, you know, that's questionable as well. There's all kinds of things that if they're not going to be enforced, people are not going to do them. Then Mama Hood gifted a subscription to Anner. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Serpentine also says, hey, Rumble people, coming over to Pilled, we have Red Pill Velvet Cookies. Yes, I think Lisa has been passing out the links to Pilled, to YouTube, to Getter, to X, but most of the people watching outside of YouTube and Rumble are over there on Pilled. So love you guys. Thanks for that. Before we get into the Anthony Fauci conversation, quick message from our friends over on Rumble. You guys, again, a very quick question. How much control do you really have over your own money? Technology is changing everything, and money is one of those things that it is changing bigly. crypto started out as a niche area, but now it is basically mainstream. You get faster payments, you get more control, fewer middlemen. This isn't hype. It is truly where things are going, and getting started today is a lot easier than you think. This is where the Rumble Wallet comes in, because with Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin. You can also hold dollar-backed stable coins. You can even hold digital gold that is backed by real gold, and it's all in one convenient place. And the setup is very simple. It connects to MoonPay, so you can use your debit card, your credit card, or a bank account. You'll be up and running in just a couple of minutes. It's not about the amount. It's really about getting in early and understanding what's coming next in terms of this future technology. But once you're all set up, you can use the Rumble Wallet today. Thank you very much to Rumble. Also, Jixer Trixer, thank you very much for gifting a subscription. Doesn't look like it's been given to anybody yet. Texas Drifter 38 has picked that up. Congratulations, Texas Drifter. All right, you guys. Now, this whistleblower, as we suspected, came in, announced himself. He is a CIA employee. He's an operations officer, and he testified to what we already know, right? I mean, I feel like this is a repeat of stuff that we have heard time and time again, and the only reason to have this guy come forward and expose this is to, once again, continue keeping that public attention and pressure on Anthony Fauci and give the Department of Justice yet another reason why this guy should be prosecuted. So Rand Paul brings this guy in. He of course, he's got a legal boner for Anthony Fauci from lying to Congress now just about 5 years ago. And this new congressional whistleblower, the COVID-19 whistleblower, as he is being billed, is a guy by the name of James Erdman III. Now, Erdman was a CIA senior operations officer and a co-founder of a group called Feds for Freedom. And this organization's mission revolves around holding our government accountable, which is something I can get behind. So during this hearing, earlier, before the hearing, Rand Paul put out a press release, and they did it in conjunction with Feds for Freedom. And they said, by exposing the CIA's deliberate suppression of the COVID-19 lab leak origin and the ongoing weaponization of the intelligence community against the American public, then we can do some good. So we are not going to listen to many clips from this, but we are going to hear, first of all, Rand Paul announcing him.
She approved the research that went on in Wuhan, and that it might not be in his interest for the conclusion to be that it came from a lab that he had funded, that there might be a conflict. Did anybody ever bring up that he might not be an objective witness?
That was one example of an email. No one laid it out quite that clearly. You're piecing it together. We were piecing it together from multiple emails, from multiple agencies, multiple documents. It was more subtle than that. Nobody said this is happening, and unfortunately, I think they probably should have. It was all out there.
But your conclusion is that changing from the scientific consensus of it being from a lab to a neutral position by the CIA was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci?
It was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci's injecting himself into the IC. And to go to the second part of your question about what happened, particularly during the 90-day study, we have documentation that shows that as of August 12th, the CIA was considering calling this a lab leak, August 12th of 2021. And then that changed on August 17th of 2021. Right. And unfortunately, because the CIA would not provide us documentation that we asked for, we have no idea why that changed. And that's
And they weren't alone, because we know the FBI was coming to the same conclusion that it was lab leak, as well as the FBI. Senator Ernst?
All right, so this is obviously notable because it takes someone from the intelligence community who, to this point, have not come forward to speak about the influence of Anthony Fauci on the CIA. First of all, the guy is not part of the intelligence community. He's part of the public health community. So what is he doing exerting any pressure over the intelligence community? Now, this is one of the reasons why I think Anthony Fauci will likely be implicated in the biological weapons labs that Tulsi Gabbard and the DNI are now openly investigating. Because I think Anthony Fauci's true role within the government was in the intelligence community, and he was tasked with essentially running, in my opinion, our biological weapons programs. So this so-called, research on viruses and on sicknesses was not to get people healthy or not to stop pandemics. It was to weaponize these things and to use them as weapons against our various global enemies. Now, here is the introduction from Mr. Erdman himself, just talking about his position, why he came forward, and exactly basically what he lays out, the sum of his claims.
Thank you for the complimentary introduction, and I appreciate the committee's dedication to transparency and accountability. I am a career CIA operations officer, and as you mentioned, I was on joint duty assignment at the Office of Director National Intelligence Directors Initiatives Group, or the DIG, between March 2025 and April 2026. I was responsible for leading the DIG's investigation into COVID origins, anomalous health incidents, and unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm here today to...
So I think it's also interesting that he was part of the UAP investigations within the CIA. Doesn't really touch on that, but he does touch on a couple of other key little tidbits, which are also coming up through a number of other sort of exposure ops.
Discuss the COVID cover-up, the national security implications associated with the DIG's investigative findings, and CIA refusal to comply with lawful oversight, as well as how we remedy these problems. Intelligence community leaders and senior analysts downplayed the possibility that the COVID pandemic originated as a result of a lab incident. Motives are difficult to define given the scope of the DIG's review. Intentional or not, the IC's actions resulted in a cover-up, wasted resources, and a failure to properly inform policymakers. Public health policy would have been very different had the American public been made aware that a virus from a lab in China was going to serve as the foundation for an emergency use authorization mRNA products being mandated by the former administration. Dr. Fauci's role in the cover-up was intentional. Dr. Fauci influenced the analytical process and findings by leveraging his position to ensure the IC consulted with a conflicted list of curated subject matter experts, public health officials, and scientists. This included some of the authors of the paper, The Proximal Origin of SARS-CoV-2, and other public health experts who have been in his orbit for the last 20-plus years.
Now, we've seen the emails. We've seen the conversations that Anthony Fauci was having regarding the pressure he was putting on people. We know about the $9 million grant that he gave to that guy to change the conclusion of his paper. So what this witness has done is sort of bring it all full circle and say that, yes, what you assumed was happening when you saw all of that stuff is in reality what was happening behind the scenes. Now, what's interesting about this is that the CIA is apparently not happy about the fact that he's out here testifying. Now, they kind of try to downplay what his claims are, and they deny that he's actually a whistleblower. They seem to insinuate that the only reason he's there testifying is because he was compelled to testify by Rand Paul through the use of a subpoena. Listen to this.
And I want to give you a little color that we're getting from the CIA just now. They are not happy with the way this hearing is going down. They are accusing Senator Rand Paul and the Senate Homeland Security Committee of, quote, acting in bad faith in putting this hearing together. They say this witness in there isn't a whistleblower. They say he hasn't sought any whistleblower protections. They said he's in that room right now because the committee subpoenaed him, compelled him to come in and testify. And the CIA says they weren't given a heads up about this. The committee didn't go through the proper channels. emails, and they provided Fox News a statement. It says in part, quote, "The committee acted in bad faith by subpoenaing an agency officer for testimony today without notifying CIA, despite having already obtained closed-door testimony from the individual previously. The witness testifying today is not appearing as a whistleblower in pursuit of the truth, but instead in response to the subpoena issued by Chairman Paul. This proceeding amounts to nothing more than a dishonest political theater masquerading as a congressional hearing. As the CIA has already assessed, COVID-19 most likely originated from a lab leak, and efforts to undermine that conclusion are disingenuous." Well, Harris, as Senator Rand Paul was walking into that hearing room this morning, again, he chairs this committee. I told him about that CIA statement and told him they're accusing him of operating in bad faith. I asked him to respond to that. Here's what he said.
Now, before we hear from Rand Paul on that, I'm very confused by this statement by the CIA. It sounds like, first of all, they're upset. They're upset that this guy was compelled to come in and testify. They're also upset that they weren't given a heads up that he was going to come in to testify. They seem to indicate also that the testimony will in some way challenge the recently arrived at conclusion that, yes, this actually was a lab leak. But they never attributed Anthony Fauci with the cover-up of the initial operation, you know, to psyop the American people into thinking this came from a bat and a pangolin. So nobody is trying to poo-poo on the lab leak conclusion. So I'm very confused as to why they would say that. Now, Liz Lyon, she's the director of public affairs. I don't know if she wrote this or if this came from somebody else. Obviously, John Ratcliffe is the director of the CIA, but the CIA is a big organization. I think there's a huge deep state contingency that is still inside there.
CIA says the committee acted in bad faith with this hearing. They just sent out a statement. Your response to that?
You know, I think transparency is good. I think we overclassify everything. Congress passed a law to unanimously declassify all of the COVID information. We all want to know the truth. Where did it come from? Why has it taken so long for people to admit to it? Now almost every agency admits that it did come from the lab, but they still haven't been forthcoming. There's no reason to have secrets on this. We want them to obey the law. The CIA needs to obey the law, and they need to reveal the information.
All right, so I'm just a little confused.
And I want to give you a little color that we're getting.
Now, it just may all be about the CIA losing control of this this narrative. Now, this was particularly interesting. He also blew the whistle on the fact that the CIA was illegally spying on Americans and the director of national intelligence, and that they illegally took a bunch of boxes of information that the DNI was evaluating on the JFK assassination and on MK Ultra. Now, obviously, Anna Paulina Luna and her committee recently did their sort of new JFK hearings, and obviously there was the release of some new information. And then she had also scheduled an upcoming hearing on MK Ultra. That has just been postponed. And now she's demanding that this information that was taken by the CIA be delivered to the committee because it was supposed to have been delivered to them already. But certainly this, I don't think that this was one of the things that the CIA was counting on Mr. Erdman copping to.
The CIA refused to provide information necessary to understand why analytical standards at the CIA were violated. The CIA illegally monitored the computer and phone usage of DIG personnel, their investigations, and contact with whistleblowers. These were Americans being spied upon illegally while executing duties directed by the President and under the authority of the Director of National Intelligence. One CIA contractor assisting with the DIG's investigation into the events that transpired between 2022 and 2023 was fired by the CIA one day after meeting with the DIG. When the DIG ceased operations, the CIA also took back 40 boxes of JFK files and MK Ultra files being processed for declassification by DNI Gabbard.
So when you think about all of these federal agencies, you think about governments, you know, the concept of the good twin, bad twin, all right? These are bureaucratic organizations, but they are not monolithic. You've got people working within them. James Erdman, under, you know, my opinion, would represent the good twin within the CIA. He's trying to call them out for the bad behavior. The agents or operatives who took those 40 boxes of MKUltra and JFK stuff, they would obviously represent the bad twin. The agent or the person who fired the CIA contractor working with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, they would obviously represent the bad twin. This appears to me to be an exposure op to directly call out those remaining deep state elements within the Central Intelligence Agency. And I think that they are mad pissed that this guy came out and spoke about all of these things. C to Shining C says, happy hump day. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. Yes, so James Erdman, definitely the good twin in this story. And it just goes to show you once again that although the organization may be rotten, not every element within the organization is rotten itself. Continuing here, Senator Bernie Moreno asks the question that I've seen in the chat today. Where is the freaking accountability? Okay, why have we not yet seen Anthony Fauci being held accountable? Because perp walks are what we want. Now, I go back to my contention that simply because you haven't seen Anthony Fauci perp walked yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. I think there's a very, very good reason why the conversation is being steered back in this direction. And I do believe that Anthony Fauci is going to be indicted. And I think it's going to be for a lot more than simply lying to Congress. Anthony Fauci was part of a vast whole of government conspiracy that was designed to destroy President Trump and to put the deep state back into power.
And I think all these hearings are important. What you said is super critical. And again, I applaud you for taking and having the courage to come here and your detailed and methodical review of all this. But where's the accountability? This is what I hear from my constituents all over Ohio. Is like, great, you got a hearing, you said this and that happened, but they want to see the perp walks. Where are the people who made these decisions, and how do we hold them accountable? Anthony Fauci is sitting, probably sipping margaritas somewhere with his multi-million-dollar financial success as a result of duping the American people into putting an experimental virus in their vaccine into their bodies, or risk losing their jobs. He's not accountable to anybody. He's having a great life. He was featured on Vogue magazine. He sat there for a cover shot for a day, trying to get beauty shots of him, which I imagine the photographer found difficult. Where do you think that we are on a path to accountability?
So I don't work at DOJ, and so I can't speak to prosecutions or perp walks or any of that stuff. But what I'll say is, and I want to go back to the first thing you mentioned here about the American public. I think, and this is my opinion, I'm not expressing myself as a CIA officer or on loan to DNI, whatever it is. I think we really want both Democrats and Republicans to show up and communicate and cooperate on issues, because part of the most important, and you all know this, I'm sorry, legislative branch, they have some power of oversight. You guys are not. You can't make DOJ prosecute anybody. You can reach across the aisle, and you can try and get these people to pull the purse strings when agencies are behaving poorly. And, you know, from my perspective, and I don't mean to criticize anyone, we need the legislative branch to start pulling purse strings. It's got to be with teeth if you want accountability. And this is perfect. This forum here is perfect. It's about the transparency piece. Can't act unless people know. I can tell you that Director Gabbard is doing her best to pursue accountability with all of the investigations that were undertaken by the DIG. And, you know, we can serve everything up, and it's up to DOJ to take action at that point. And I can't speak to DOJ, but
Okay, so that point that he just made there is so vitally important, and I know that people miss it all the time. I see it. Somebody on YouTube was like, oh, it's so telling that Anthony Fauci and Bill Gates are walking around during Trump's presidency. Why isn't Trump doing anything about this? I'm sorry, but that is simple-minded, and it is simply not the way our system works, and it completely ignores the fact that despite all of the cleanup, all of the reforms, all of the changes that have been made throughout the various federal agencies, the deep state is still deeply embedded in each of these places. President Trump cannot personally be responsible for an investigation and a charge of Dr. Anthony Fauci or anybody. That is the responsibility of the Department of Justice. Now, I'm so glad that Mr. Erdman is talking about that fact, because the only person that I have seen publicly really driving this home is Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, as the Director of National Intelligence, is responsible for the oversight of all of those intelligence agencies. And if she is the one driving these things, then that's obviously a good thing. But the action has to come on behalf of the DOJ. Now, I take you back to what I heard the other day, that the DOJ is right now actively reviewing the various things that they could go after Anthony Fauci for. And even when they decide what those things are going to be, it takes time. There may have been an investigation going on behind the scenes all of this time, and you wouldn't know about it because the DOJ hasn't come forward and announced that they have made a charge against Dr. Anthony Fauci. You're not going to find that until the moment that they're ready to talk about it. So I believe that Anthony Fauci being charged and being held accountable is necessary for the healing of the United States of America. But even more than that, it's necessary for the success of the United States of America after President Trump is gone, once he's not in office anymore. So many of these things have got to fall into place, but they have to fall into place properly, because if they don't happen properly, then they get away. They slither off like a snake, and then we have lost our opportunity to do something about it. I believe that it's happening, and I believe that you will see it, but it's just not going to necessarily be right this second. So I think that what Erdman is doing is a necessary component to ensure that that happens. We do need to have action from the legislature. Yes, we need to have action, more importantly, from within the DOJ. And we have to be able to bring charges in places where people even will be possible to have them convicted. If a charge is brought against Anthony Fauci in the District of Columbia, like F my life, there's no way that a D.C. jury is going to agree for Anthony Fauci, first of all, to even have an indictment. Then if they do get the chance to indict him, there's no way that a Democrat, deep state, Washington, D.C. jury pool is going to convict him. There are so many pieces that have to fall into place because of the way our system works. And sure, that's frustrating. But I'm sorry, F right the F off if you're going to be blaming Trump for Dr. Anthony Fauci having not been indicted yet, because that's just not the way it works. All right, continuing. Let's see. Tulsi Gabbard launching that investigation into the U.S.-funded biolabs. Again, I believe Dr. Anthony Fauci was in charge of the clandestine United States biological weapons program. And I think that he was doing that for a very, very long time. So Tulsi Gabbard has launched this investigation of the more than 120 biological labs overseas that have received U.S. taxpayer dollars for decades. Now, I saw somebody else say, what about the biolabs here in the United States? What about Lyme, Connecticut? What was the name of that one? I can't remember the name of that one. Oh, Montauk. What about South Carolina? Well, those labs here in the United States are going to be governed by different laws than the biolabs that would be in Ukraine. Sure, you're still not supposed to work on bioweapons in those places, but you can get away with it. That's what we're likely going to be looking into. The labs here in the United States are going to be much different structure to them, and the experiments that are going on are not going to be the same as the ones taking place in another country. We know that the biolabs in Ukraine were working on biological weapons, specifically to target Russians. And there's a whole host of other ones. We know that there were experiments going on to infect people in the local area with novel infections, bacteria, viruses, and those sorts of things. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're looking at. We know that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was receiving money from Dr. Anthony Fauci's NIAID to do gain-of-function research. Again, illegal. We know that. Now, the investigation has to be completed in order to bring charges for those things. And even more than that, they've got to be able to tie these individual people to the overt acts that would be part of that conspiracy. So Tulsi Gabbard spoke to the New York Post on Monday, and she said she and her team are going to identify where these labs are, what pathogens they contain, what research is being conducted to end dangerous gain-of-function research that threatens the health and well-being of the American people and the world. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed the catastrophic global impact research on dangerous pathogens in biolabs and what they can have. Despite these obvious dangers, politicians, so-called health professionals like Fauci, and entities within the Biden administration's national security team lied to the American people about the existence of these U.S.-funded and supported biolabs and threatened those who attempted to expose the truth. Not to mention, once they were exposed, many of them shut their doors. The ones in Ukraine, basically, they were run out by the Russians. I think I might have just lost power. And, of course, the evidence of the experiments going on there very likely may have been destroyed as they were waiting for the next administration to come in. So it's a multi-layered issue, okay? It's like a layer cake of corruption, crime, and bullshit. So in May of 2024, the National Institute of Health's principal deputy director, Lawrence Toback, admitted to Congress that taxpayer dollars were funding gain-of-function research not only at the Wuhan Institute of Virology but also at other places, and they were making viruses 10,000 times more infectious. Now, according to officials inside the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard's domain, those labs are under review and are spread across more than 30 different countries. Many of these biolabs received support through a Pentagon program that was originally established during the Cold War to secure or dismantle weapons-related materials and prevent the spread of biological and chemical threats. The report said that more than 40 of the facilities being reviewed are located in Ukraine. Intelligence officials cited concerns the laboratories are in active conflict zones and they could face the risk of compromise or disruption due to the war within the country. Arguments have been made that the lax oversight of the research funding allowed flowing through federal agencies to grantees and subawardees created a quagmire that prevents Americans from knowing whether potentially dangerous experiments are being conducted on their dime or with their consent. And again, that was a process that was intentionally made obtuse and obscure. So these grants go out to larger organizations, and then a sub-grant goes out to a smaller organization, and then another organization and another organization. And in order to find that flow of money, it makes it much more difficult, and especially in a nation like Ukraine. Rand Paul said a couple of days ago, the DOJ may never act, but the American people know the truth. Fauci misled and defrauded the country. Now, I hope that Rand Paul continues to beat this from the rooftops for as long as he possibly can until finally they bring charges against Fauci. DNI officials stated that clinical trials being conducted at the biolabs are now raising significant ethics they have discovered about these labs and the projects they were working on that we've never heard anything about. We've gotten scant, very little information about what exactly was going on inside those labs. But in an attempt to discredit the allegations made by Russia and by people like myself, the Biden administration released a statement insisting the United States does not own or operate any chemical or biological laboratories in Ukraine. But it is not a question surrounding ownership of the labs. It's a question of the origin of the funding. And that funding is obviously what allows the labs to continue operations. You can have the lab owned by another country. You can have the lab owned by a private company. You can have the lab owned by a nonprofit organization. But if the money to run that lab is coming explicitly from the taxpayers of the United States of America, whoever has their name signed on the paperwork, it really doesn't matter. It's us, and we're the ones doing it. Again, making it intentionally obtuse is a way that they can get away with doing it. Saying that the United States doesn't own or operate chemical or biological labs is not a denial of the now well-known fact that funding was being delivered through a variety of agencies, grantees, and subawardees, and it was coming from the United States of America. I'm sure you remember when we got Victoria Nuland to admit during testimony in Congress that, yes, in fact, this was really happening. And this is after they told us for several years that it was a conspiracy theory. The renewed scrutiny reflects broader political debates in Washington surrounding gain-of-function research, which, of course, involves altering pathogens in ways that may increase transmissibility or virulence for scientific study. People who support gain-of-function research says, oh, by making it so much more deadly, we can help scientists prepare for future pandemics and develop vaccines and treatments. But these are things that do not exist in nature. The way that they are increasing the virulence or the transmissibility is by combining different things that would never occur in any sort of natural environment. And so the only realistic reason in my book that they're doing these things is to make new and interesting ways to kill people. Critics contend these experiments carry significant biosafety risks if these pathogens escape a laboratory. And to be frank with you, we are lucky that the lab leak that occurred with COVID-19 was only COVID-19, because at the end of the day, it wasn't particularly deadly. It was extremely transmissible, and so it allowed people to, buy into this fear that simply by getting that, you were going to die, but obviously that didn't happen. So now we are looking at this in a very different way. Federal agencies have now pretty much acknowledged American-funded coronavirus experiments conducted at the Wuhan Institute of Virology violated grant reporting requirements. We've had Anthony Fauci defend gain-of-function research, and Anthony Fauci argued that the scientific benefits of understanding these dangerous pathogens could outweigh the risks, but he did definitely acknowledge the possibility of accidents or misuse. There really is no safe way to go about this. When Victoria Nuland was testifying in March of 2022, she was the Undersecretary of State, and she acknowledged Ukraine possessed biological research facilities and said the United States was concerned Russian forces might gain access to them. That testimony was bombshell at the time, and it's become a focal point of debates on this issue. Why does the United States have these bought and paid for laboratories doing this type of research? How are they justifying this? Unless, of course, they are getting something out of it. And based upon the sources of the funding, this is from the Department of War, this is from the Pentagon. The Pentagon doesn't just do research on things that don't kill people. That's simply not the way they work. The investigation also arrives during a time when the Trump administration is seeking to reshape intelligence and national security policy under Tulsi Gabbard's leadership. I think she's doing a hell of a job. Since she came into office in 2025, she has emphasized transparency, intelligence reform, and restoring public trust in government agencies. She's got a hell of a job in front of her. Supporters of this inquiry argue that greater oversight is necessary because federal funding for overseas biological research has expanded significantly over the last 2 decades. The truth of the matter is we don't know how big it is. We don't know how much research they are doing. We don't know the pathogens that they're working on. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth has also praised Tulsi Gabbard's announcement and accused prior officials of failing to adequately disclose the scope of foreign laboratory funding. Now, here, Dr. Anthony Fauci tweeted on January 24th of 2025, I want to thank Joe Biden for pardoning me. It was the right thing to do. I was unnecessarily persecuted by sitting congressmen like Rand Paul and many others, and I'm thankful for Biden's decision. Well, as you know, I believe that this is now going to come up in court. We have a number of people who were given these preemptive pardons. I think Anthony Fauci's was the only one that was as broad as it was. But Hegseth said the prior administration bankrolled dangerous gain-of-function research at foreign biolabs with American taxpayer dollars and then deliberately hid it from the American people. The declassification of this discovery shows how little oversight this work had. Under President Trump's leadership, DNI Tulsi Gabbard and the entire cabinet are righting these historic wrongs and delivering justice for our warfighters and ones they protect. The era of lies and betrayal is over. Now, the era of lies and betrayal is not quite over. We still haven't exposed all of these things, but in order to do that, once again, it is just going to take a tremendous amount of time. I mean, take a look at the Pentagon is only just now finally righting the wrongs of the former administration. People who were kicked out for refusing the jab, now able to come back, get all of their benefits, get all of their back pay. Most people would have liked to have seen that happen immediately, but the Pentagon is a slow and bloated bureaucracy in the same way that all of these other federal agencies are. So, unfortunately, that's just how it works. It takes time. Yes, and Kristen says the lives destroyed cannot be healed. No. And when I say healed, I merely mean the collective psychological well-being of the United States. People need to see accountability being doled out in order to believe that things truly have changed in any meaningful way, or that we're not going to immediately go back to the exact same corrupt system that we had. But yes, in many different ways, there is a lot of healing that can never take place. People cannot be made whole. People cannot be brought back from the dead. People cannot get their houses back. People cannot get their relationships back. There's so many things that simply cannot be undone. Siesta Randy, thank you very much for tipping via the Rumble wallet. And that was $10 in Bitcoin. I appreciate you, sir. Really appreciate you. All right. Thank you to Filter Dog, who also said, who was the arrested Harvard professor? You talking about Charles? Oh, shit. I can't remember his name. The guy that was arrested for the Chinese stuff. Harvard professor Charles Lieber. Charles Lieber was the professor I think you're referring to. One Thunder. Thank you for the can. Appreciate that. All right. Now, we also have now just learned that Joe Biden's administration in the final days secretly set up a situation where President Trump could be re-indicted for the crimes, the alleged crimes that improperly appointed special counsel Jack Smith was attempting to go after him for during that administration. So Arctic frost memos, more of them, have just been released. In the very last gasps of Joe Biden's presidency, FBI agents who were working with the Department of Justice special counsel Jack Smith's investigation, they believed, of course, that President Trump broke the law, or at least they thought that they could convict him of that. And again, all around the 2020 election, they basically secretly arranged to preserve all of their evidence until 2030. They put it in memos, and they memorialized those memos. They classified those memos. And because it would be maintained until 2030, which would be 2 years after President Trump's this second term would end, it would allow them to come back under a new administration, bring these charges anew, and then in their minds, hopefully, finally get Trump after all these years. So these are memos that were under the care of the FBI. Also emails, which closed out the Arctic frost investigation. But it shows that the Bureau at that time chose not to relinquish the evidence they had gathered after Smith went to court to dismiss the charges against President Trump, even though this would be normally what the FBI agents would do. And also, normally in a situation like this, Jack Smith should have dismissed this case with prejudice, which would mean that it couldn't be brought again in the future. We saw that at the time, and I was like, he said without prejudice, and I believe that's because they want to try and get him again in the future. And that's exactly what they were seeking to do. So they created a preservation order, which would allow the FBI to hold on to this evidence until 2030, 2 years after President Trump's second term is going to end. They claimed that it was necessary to do so because of ongoing litigation, which is total freaking bullshit. Also, I went to Rumble myself, and it appears that Rumble is not working for me either. None of the videos that I see on the homepage, I can't see any of them, and I can't see their thumbnails or anything. I can't see any of the shorts. So there definitely is a problem on Rumble today. All right, so these FBI emails and memos were obtained by Just the News, and they go back to early 2025, just before President Trump is going to be re-inaugurated. And it shows how these corrupt FBI agents and DOJ prosecutors who had been working on these criminal prosecutions, looking to get Trump and the people around him, essentially working to close down this 2020 election-related case as he was about to be inaugurated, seemingly left the door open for a new criminal case to be revived once, in their minds, Democrats were able to take power again and control the Justice Department. So the FBI director, Kash Patel, said the American people deserve to know how this egregious weaponization of power to target political opponents and President Trump happened inside an institution that was meant to protect them. We shut down the weaponized CR-15 squad, and we are going to keep following the facts until there is full accountability. The FBI exists to protect the country, not to preserve political prosecutions for a future administration. So after President Trump won in November of 2024, Jack Smith sought to dismiss the case again without prejudice, which left the door open for a future prosecution. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkin, appointed to the federal bench by Barack Hussein Obama, pointed to the Office of Legal Counsel's position that a sitting president could not be prosecuted by his own DOJ and granted Smith's request to dismiss the case without prejudice. One of the key case closing documents that the FBI gave to Just the News, it originated from the FBI's Washington field office CR-15 team, the team that Kash Patel mentioned they had disbanded almost as soon as coming in. It was dated a couple of weeks into President Trump's second term on February 5th. So this is after he was already inaugurated, and many of those holdover agents from the past administration were still in place. They hadn't been fired yet. The newly released closing document from early 2025 repeated all of the extensive claims of criminality against the president. All of them, of course, had been pursued by Smith and the people working with him and many others within the Bureau. And they wanted to hold on to this evidence until they could get somebody else to come in and prosecute the president for it. So the document was titled Arctic Frost Election Law Matters, Sensitive Investigative Matter. And in its synopsis, they said to document the closing of captioned investigation. And they listed enclosures buttressing the document that they were a deputy special counsel concurrence and the retention of evidence approval. So the record from the FBI states, this electronic communication seeks approval to close the captioned full sensitive investigative matter investigation, that because this was a SIM opened by a field office and involved a presidential candidate, the same level of approval required to open the investigation is also required to close the investigation. So last year, it showed that Attorney General Merrick Garland, at that time, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, and Director of the FBI Christopher Wray all signed off on the launch of Arctic Frost after the events of January 6th. Garland also quickly said he personally approved the decision to seek that search warrant when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago. But we do also know that the Biden White House directly linked to those classified documents, despite the fact they denied it. They had everything to do with that raid. The FBI, in this new document, it states the approval rolls on this closing EC match those on the opening EC. And as such, Washington field office is seeking approval up to and including the director of the FBI to close this investigation. The summary of the results of the investigation into President Trump, the investigation that Jack Smith had done, they argued the captioned FBI investigation was opened based on specific and articulatable facts and circumstances that individuals affiliated with Donald J. Trump engaged in activity that violated federal law. Going against the reality of the situation. They allege the investigation revealed that when Donald J. Trump lost the 2020 presidential election, He resorted to crimes to try to stay in office. With various co-conspirators, Trump launched a series of plans to overturn the legitimate election results in 7 states that he had lost: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. I can't wait until we learn that each and every one of those states were actually stolen from him. The Bureau also alleged that Trump and his co-conspirators used knowingly false claims of election fraud in furtherance of 3 conspiracies. 1, conspiracy to interfere with the federal government function by which the nation collects and counts election results, which is set forth in the Constitution and the Electoral Count Act. 2, a conspiracy to obstruct the official proceeding in which Congress certifies the legitimate results of the presidential election. And 3, a conspiracy against the rights of millions of Americans to vote and have their votes counted. They had another section called disposition of evidence related to the Smith investigation, stating this investigation is subject to a litigation hold and is on the freeze list. As a result, no evidence can be returned or destroyed and must be retained. And that would be the line that allowed them to open it again in the future. But obviously, that's not going to happen now. The FBI memo also said that the FBI assistant special agent in charge of approval had to retain all evidence notwithstanding closure, as was required by the FBI's Field Evidence Management Policy Guide. The retention EC specifies that the evidence will be retained until at least February 1st, 2030, but in no case prior to the lift of the freeze and litigation hold, and the special counsel's office concurred with the retention. So Jack Smith was fully aware of what the FBI was doing and likely probably would have been made a special counsel again just so that he could re-prosecute all this stuff. A prosecutor's job is to gather facts discreetly, apply the law fairly, and decide whether a case should be brought. This is Bud Cummins, the former U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Arkansas. In this case, if the case cannot or should not be prosecuted, the prosecutor should close the file, not write a political narrative, preserve a roadmap, and leave behind a prosecution kit for future use. What Jack Smith has done is created a model that turns prosecutorial discretion upside down. When the courtroom is unavailable, the report becomes the weapon. That is not neutral law enforcement. It is yet another in a long line of blows to the credibility of the Department of Justice. So yes, thank God the FBI found this information. Thank God they have now officially closed everything out. And thank God President Trump does not have to be concerned about this. Now, here is John Solomon discussing the release of this information and some of the implications.
Blockbuster story this morning is about Jack Smith. Take your second, even if I have to hold you through the break. I know you get a bounce, but this one's so important. That understanding they were starting to run the tables on these guys, they actually set up a potential apparatus to go after Trump when he leaves office. Folks, this is a war to the knife. And Jack Smith and these guys are relentless. Walk us through this.
And again, this is why I keep defaulting to the idea that President Trump and his team must be successful, because who knows how many other methods have been inserted into the system out there to allow deep state actors to come back at some time in the future, if they're able to regain power, and to do exactly what they were attempting to do in this instance. People would be stupid to believe that they don't have dozens of other mechanisms out there just waiting to be implemented.
Your breaking story, John Solomon.
Yeah, again, props to the FBI Director Kash Patel and the Justice Department for finding these documents. These things are hidden in places, and I'll tell you a story at the very end, just how duplicitous some of the FBI people were in hiding things. But these documents were hidden from us for a long time. So when we heard in January 2025, as President Trump was taking the oath of office and coming back to office, hey, Jack Smith dismissed the cases, Donald Trump's out of the woods, no more legal issues. That's not what the FBI actually set in motion. What they did, the Justice Department went to the courts and said, please dismiss this without prejudice, meaning the charges could be brought again. That's step one. Step two is the FBI normally, when it closes down an investigation, it disgorges all of its evidence. In this case, the FBI concocted an excuse to hold the evidence in the Arctic Frost January 6th investigation to 2030, ironically, a year and a half after President Trump would be out of office. And then they wrote a memo saying, we're still certain Donald Trump committed all these crimes. So you preserve the evidence, You preserve the predicate by restating what you think happened, and then you tell the judge, please don't dismiss this with prejudice, meaning it can never be brought again. Leave it open. That went on under the seal of cover, under the darkness of night in the FBI in the final days of the Biden presidency. We now have all the documents. Now, here's the big question for Donald Trump's Justice Department. Will Todd Blanche go to Judge Chutkan, who oversaw the January 6th case, and say, we are now requesting that the dismissal of the January 6th case and any other case against President Trump be dismissed with prejudice. That means it can never be brought again. The reason we are asking for that, the Justice Department could potentially say, is that they found widespread abuses in Arctic Frost, such as spying on members of Congress, taking people's phone records, taking people's legal. I think that's the opportunity for Todd. We'll find out.
Okay, so I sure hope that Todd Blanche does that. He seems to have been remarkably active since becoming the acting attorney general. And so I've got no reason to think that that won't happen. We seem to have had a series of overt actions taken by Todd Blanche. Obviously, Pam Bondi was the attorney general for 14 months. I think that she definitely was part of setting all of this up and basically putting Todd into a position so that he could take over and ram all of this stuff through. So I'm keeping my eyes open, and I am hopefully optimistic. Now, we had mentioned, I believe, a couple of weeks ago that Todd Lyons was stepping down from his position at ICE. He's had a number of instances with crazies online doxing his wife and his children, putting his house online, taking pictures, sharing it in left-wing Antifa groups. And so he was stepping away from his position. Now, President Trump has just nominated a new acting chief, Dave Venturella, to replace Todd Lyons. He will now be the acting ICE director, and perhaps much like Todd Blanche in that acting position where he doesn't have to worry about being questioned or voted on by the Senate, he can maybe push through some harder-edged policies. That's exactly what I would like to see. So the Trump administration is nominating longtime immigration official Dave Venturella to be the interim head of U.S. Customs and Immigration's Enforcement. Lyons will actually leave at the end of the month. Hang on, I need to exit out of this view so that I can see everything here. Now, the Venturella, before joining ICE, worked at GEO Group. It's one of the main for-profit prison companies that operates immigration detention centers across the U.S., so at least he knows the substance of this issue. He also worked at the now-defunct Immigration and Naturalization Service, or INS, and he's considered a close ally of border czar Tom Homan. His expected appointment was first reported on Tuesday by the New York Times. Now, the federal agency at the forefront of this conversation, ICE, has gotten more scrutiny in the last year. There have been some accusations that they've been too heavy-handed. Personally, I think they haven't been heavy-handed enough. I would love to see ICE do a lot more than they have. And by a lot more, I mean I want them to be as aggressive as they possibly can. Here's an excellent example of something that I think has a great psychological effect on the minds of the people trying to stop ICE. A popular chef in Los Angeles has just been arrested and is being deported by ICE. And a former employee, it looks like, is the one who actually is responsible for that. So I love it. Thank you very much. Great job. This guy is a pretty popular chef in the Los Angeles area, but he's now been arrested because he violated parole. So his name is Carlos Lewell, and he runs a couple of restaurants in southern Los Angeles, La Granja Rotisserie and Fuego Rotisserie. And he was just busted this past weekend. He's going to be sent back to Guatemala. Now, we don't know whether or not he was here illegally or if he had some particular status, but he definitely came here from Guatemala. He was not a citizen, and we do have footage of the moment he's being arrested, and his girlfriend is not happy about it. So let me get past the commercial here real quick. You know what? It may not work.
Restaurant owner, well known. South LA restaurant owner, well known for his wood-fired chicken and catering business, is now in ICE custody and facing deportation.
His girlfriend tells us both his future and the future of his business are now on the line tonight. Eyewitness News reporter Abigail Velez has the story.
This video captures the moment Chef Carlos Lul is taken into custody by masked agents.
What's your problem? Give me his wallet.
That's Jenna, you can hear screaming, his girlfriend and business partner.
This is heartbreaking. Every single person who's had a family member or someone that they love that's taken from them by ICE is just so sad and humiliating.
Jenna says the two were followed by ICE agents early Saturday morning while picking up supplies for a catering event.
They yanked him out of the car. They had him on the floor. They yanked me back. They pulled out their guns. And then they took him.
For customers here in Hyde Park, Chef Carlos is more than just a business owner. He's the face of La Granja Rotisserie and Fuego Rotisserie, known for his food and also years of mentoring young chefs in South LA. But he also has a criminal conviction from Connecticut dating back about 30 years, a crime he served time for.
I think that he's not going to be here caring for everything that, that he dreamed about building in this country. It's just devastating.
Jenna says the investigation started after a former employee reported the restaurant to authorities, claiming there was a gun inside the business, a violation of Carlos's parole, something Jenna says was needed for protection.
We're in a tough neighborhood. We have been robbed. We constantly have people breaking windows, jumping over the fence.
Now with Carlos detained and possibly days away from deportation, his employees and his family are left wondering what happens next.
He's been in this country. His kids are here. So it's just a lot. It's very overwhelming, and to go and he doesn't have his clothes, no cell phone, no computer, and we own businesses. We're just getting deeper and deeper in a hole because he's being deported.
We don't care. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about Carlos's criminal history. Let's see. So, all right, so he had a 1997 criminal conviction from Connecticut. That was for third-degree assault. That's a Class A misdemeanor. And then in 1998, he was convicted of second-degree felony assault. He's also got several DUIs and failure to appear offenses on his criminal record. So the guy should have been deported a long time ago. I feel bad for Jennifer with that ugly cry. It's got to be tough. Obviously, she's going to be not able to run the business without him there, but maybe there's something she can figure out because Carlos is going back to Guatemala. Oh, look that. They have a GoFundMe for him. Of course they do. Anyways, he had plenty of opportunities over the years to not be a criminal. You come here to the United States of America, you are afforded that luxury. All we ask is that you follow the laws of our nation. And if you don't follow the laws of our nation, well, then, unfortunately, we're going to have to tell you to go someplace else. All right, before I continue, I have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble and my friends and viewers at Sea of Mud. You guys, this country wasn't just handed to us. It was carved out one hard mile at a time from 1776 to right now, 250 years of grit, sacrifice, and men and women who refuse to fold. Sea of Mud Apparel has just dropped their 250-year anniversary shirt. It's built to honor where we came from and the fight that it took to get here. And every single piece by Sea of Mud is American-sourced and American-manufactured in Nashville, Tennessee. There's no shortcuts. There's no overseas mass production. It's just real gear for real Americans. And it's not going to be some soft throwaway patriotic tee. It's rugged, it's durable, and it means something when you wear it. And right now, sale items are buy one, get one free. So if you believe this country is still worth standing up for, then this one's for you. Head on over to seaofmud.com, SEA of mud.com, seaofmud.com. You can also use the QR code on screen, but you got to make sure to use the code RUMBLE to get 10% off, and then you can also take advantage of that buy one, get one free deal. Sea of Mud Apparel, 250 years later, and we're not done yet. Thank you very much to the good folks over there. Appreciate it. Yeah, so you guys don't realize this, but the way these Rumble ads work is people see the show on Rumble, and then they want to advertise through Rumble. and then they can request to throw an ad on my show. So when they do that, I really appreciate it because it obviously allows me to continue doing this. It is pretty much the only source of funding outside of the donations that we get sometimes on the show. So I really do appreciate each and every one of the Patriot advertisers who decide that they want to advertise on my program. Thank you to Handset for gifting 5 subscriptions, Brudermart71, B1 Car, Spud Hill, Rich, and Zillow on my pillow. Got free subscriptions. Awesome, guys. And then Emerald Dragon 1333 says, just so you know, Zach, your redemption arc of soft disclosure ads is my favorite. Should I play that ad today? If you guys haven't seen the new soft disclosure ad, you really ought to because it is freaking amazing. Let me see. I don't think I have a video queued up on here, but let me hang on. Let me throw this ad up because y'all need to see this. This is pretty, and actually I think I'm going to need to convert it real quick. Let me convert it and then I'll play it for you and then you guys can see why I'm so excited about it. The new soft disclosure ad is so freaking good. Where did I download it to? It's got to be in my downloads folder. Oh, this is it. This is it right here. Okay, so throw it in there, and let me pull this up here. You guys, you're gonna love this. If you don't love it, I don't know what to tell you. Because it is great, so freaking great. My buddy Greenstar makes these ads. And he is so good. So freaking good. There it is. There it is. There it is. Okay. Let me pause it. I got to turn up the volume here. Today we remember those who gave everything. And memory is never still.
This Memorial Day! One hero, one mission to deliver softness to America!
No, Gigi, we can't stop for snacks, dude. We have to deliver all of these soft disclosure gift cards.
He goes by Zak Paine.
The motion detector!
Stop fighting over the beard brush.
Life finds a way.
Hydrate your elbows, moisturize your soul. Feel the rhythm together. Makes you feel alive and let the lotion roll. Soft disclosure, hear the cry. Maximum softness, do or die.
Muffin, hit it. It is so good. So what would you guys think if I actually did grow a mullet? Could I get away with that? I wore a short mullet for some time, like 20 years ago. I actually did it. Yes, the Alpha cameo is fabulous. The whole thing is great. Greenstar did such an amazing job making the dogs, the DeLorean. Anyways, we'll see. I don't know if Lisa will allow me to grow a mullet, but yeah, Theo Von does it. He does it pretty well. We'll see. We'll see if Lisa will allow me to grow a mullet. Oh my God. All right, you guys. We're going to go ahead and call it there. I got to get some dinner. Got to go hang out with my wife. And some people don't want me to grow a mullet. Some people do want me to grow a mullet. My mother does not want me to grow a mullet. That's hilarious. All right, you guys. That will be all. Don't forget, all of the sponsors of the show are in the description of the video. Oh, gosh, I've got so much that I've been talking about recently. I haven't really called anybody out. But let me say thank you to my friends at Tamarack Garden.
Your body doesn't need more synthetic fixes. It needs real plant medicine. Wild herbs are packed with minerals, adaptogens, and healing compounds your body actually recognizes and can use, supporting energy, immunity, and balance from the inside out. At Tamarack Garden, our supplements bring these overlooked weeds and wildflowers back into your daily routine. Don't just manage symptoms, support your body and eat your weeds. Head to tamarackgarden.com for $10 off your order of $50 or more when you use code RP78 at checkout.
Oh. I gotta turn that off so it doesn't play every time I go to my camera. All right, Lisa unfortunately says she agrees with my mother. I should not wear a mullet. Let me say thank you to Warrior Mima, who says, Zach, I have to tell you, you actually wear a mullet quite well. That is a fire ad for soft disclosure. Thank you. I think that they're going to make T-shirts of me with a mullet and the DeLorean and the dogs. So I'll let you guys know when those come out. Chafed Bum says illegals are gay. That is all. I agree with you. One Thunder, thank you for the can. Maya Tua, thank you for the can. Sean Joe, thank you for 3 cans. I really do appreciate it. All right, you guys, good luck. God bless. I hope that all of you guys have a wonderful night. And I will see you tomorrow right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, good luck and God bless.